The Wonderful Tale of Donkey Skin by The May Fairy. Illustrations by Maton. Comics by Codriton. Long, long ago, in a land far away...
What country was this?
Huh? Oh, France. France. So, long, long ago, in a faraway land named France, there lived a king.
What was his name? King Louis? Which one?
King Louis the Fourth and a half.
Really?
Yes. So this king was a happy king, for he had everything he could wish for. He had the most beautiful wife in the world, a lovely little girl, and a magic donkey. Now, every morning this donkey would poop gold coins.
That's yucky! The coins would have the king's portrait on them, right? And you would have to pick them out of the donkey poop.
Well, actually, my mistake. It wasn't in the donkey poop. The donkey was very special. When the little girl grew older and learned to milk cows, she tried to milk the donkey, and the milk would come out as pure liquid gold. As it dripped into the bucket, it would turn into gold coins with the portrait of the king on them.
That's better. No digging in poop for the gold.
Alas, happiness never lasts forever. The queen fell ill and died.
What did she die of?
It was the plague that killed her. There was a lot of plague in the Middle Ages, a terrible disease carried by rats, which were infested with fleas. This disease destroyed thousands and thousands of people.
It can't be. If the people died by the thousands, then how come only the queen died of the plague?
Well, you see, she didn't really die of the plague. People thought it was the plague. But in reality, it was this evil Duke of Normandy who killed her. He hated her.
Why?
Why? You see, he hated the king too. They had gone to war together in their youth, fought many enemies, and won many battles. The Duke of Normandy thought he was just as brave, smart, handsome, and good as the king. They both fell in love with this beautiful girl, but she married the king, not the Duke. Oh la la, he became very, very angry, totally furious, and swore to take revenge. So one day, he killed the queen with a mysterious poison that made it look like it was the plague. Before dying in the king's arms, she whispered softly, "Oh, your majesty, after I am gone, do not cry for me. Please marry another. But do make sure she is at least as beautiful, kind, and clever as I am." The king cried for days and fell into a deep depression. He could not eat, nor drink, nor sleep.
And he died? Of starvation?
No, actually, he started drinking a bit of water and swallowed some soup now and then, so he stayed alive. But he was so weak that he would stay in bed all day. He stopped caring for the affairs of the kingdom. He even stopped caring for his little daughter, the cute and pretty princess.
What was her name?
Her name? Her name was Golden Milk, but everyone just called her Go Mickey.
Oh, cool. Go Mickey.
No, not Go Mickey, just Go Mickey. So then the Duke of Normandy was very happy, because now he could take over the affairs of the kingdom. The king was even thankful, believing the Duke was helping him out. Little did he know that the evil man was planning to become king himself. After all, there was no crown prince to take over after the king's death, right? The years went by, and little Gomiki grew older. By the time she was 15, she was as beautiful as her mother had been. Her father, the king, never knew it, for he was still laying on his bed, moaning and moping all day and night long, and never even wanted to look at her. But the evil Duke saw her beauty, which reminded him so much of the dead queen's beauty. He decided to marry her.
But she was still in school. How could she get married?
In those days, girls married at 15 because they didn't have to go to school. They had a governess who taught them at home.
So they were homeschooled?
Pretty much so.
So when kids are homeschooled, they can marry early?
Well, it only applies to people who lived in the Middle Ages, not today. Therefore, the Duke asked the king for the hand of the princess in marriage. "Your Majesty," he said in a syrupy voice, "once the princess marries me, she will remain head of this kingdom after your passing." And the poor deluded king would smile tenderly, thinking he had now secured his daughter's happiness and future. Poor little Gomiki, however, was horrified at the thought. She did not like the old duke at all. He was older than her father. She was smart and could see that the kingdom had fallen into poverty and strife after the duke had taken over. She tried to go to her father to talk him out of the idea, but as usual, no one was allowed to see him, except the duke.
Couldn't she ask her grandmother for help?
Well, she wasn't as lucky as you are, with two loving grandmothers to help you whenever you need it. No, all princesses in fairy tales have no living grandmothers at all. They are all alone in the world. However, they all have a fairy godmother. So Gomiki called on a fairy godmother for advice. This particular one lived in a cave of coral and pearls. "Oh, dearest fairy godmother," cried she, "what shall I do? I do not wish to wed." Fairy godmother thought for a while and said, "I know. Let's ask for a difficult task for him to achieve, and if he cannot, you will just refuse to marry him."
Seriously? And the Duke would agree to this?
Obviously, he didn't have to. But in those days, it was usual for princesses to ask princes or dukes to go perform some heroic deed. And the duke did want to be seen as a hero, so he agreed. "Oh, my princess, what heroic deed would you like me to perform?" asked the duke. "Your Grace, I would like you to make for me a dress as beautiful as the sky, and I must have it within 3 days," replied Gomiki. After all, the fairy godmother had assured her it was impossible to do so without magic.
No way. A dress? Really? And that's a heroic deed?
Remember, she was a princess, and all princesses need pretty dresses. And since she grew up in a happy kingdom, there weren't any dragons to slay anyway. So she asked for this sky dress. Aha! Little did they know, the Duke had his own wicked wizard of a tailor hidden away in a dungeon. So, within 3 days, the servants carried to the princess's rooms a wondrous dress, light and blue, that emanated the scent of lavender and lily of the valley, with a diaphanous sash around the waist which floated like clouds when she walked.
Wait, Nana,
Huh?
a what sash?
Di? Oh, a diaphanous sash. Oh, well, it means transparent, you know, like a veil. Almost like spider's web, very light and airy and transparent. There was no way she was going to say this was not a beautiful dress, but it was expected of princesses to be fanciful and capricious. So she told the courtier to return to the Duke and tell him she now wanted within 3 days a dress as beautiful as the moon, or she would not marry him.
And the wicked wizard tailor made it?
Yes, indeed. Within 3 days, too. This one was of a shimmery white with a silvery little stars strewn in beautiful designs all over it. There was a silvery tiara shaped like a crescent moon that she could wear on her head. And when she did, it would glimmer and shine and made the little stars all glitter and twinkle and tinkle out little musical notes like tiny bells. All the maid servants could not take their eyes and ears off the dress. It was just such pure beauty. What could she say now?
She asked for another dress.
Clever you. Yes, she did. Princess Gomiki told the waiting gentleman, "Go, return to your master, and tell him this is not good enough. I now wish to have within 3 days a dress as beautiful as the sun, or I will not marry him."
And again, the wicked wizard tailor made it.
Oh, yes, he did. But he overdid himself this time. It was an unbelievable dress. It was made of satin and spun gold. And with every movement she made, the dress would swish around, and little droplets of gold would flash and fly off in every direction. These golden droplets would turn into fragrant butterflies that flitted around her. It came with a headdress covered in golden gossamer that could be pinned on her hair and stood like a golden aura around her head.
And what did the dress smell of?
Let's see. This was a sundress, right? And first thing in the morning, as the sun rises and lights up the sky, what do you smell first?
Freshly baked bread.
Ha ha! Right! So that's what the sundress and the butterflies smelled of. Freshly baked bread, and cakes, and pastries.
And pizza.
Yeah, just so. All the ladies in waiting stood there with their mouths open, not knowing what to say in front of such a royally splendid and delicious dress.
What was she going to ask for this time? What is more precious than a golden dress?
Poor Gomiki couldn't think of that either. So she majestically told the gentleman to return to the Duke, and she would give her answer the next day at noon. She had to call again on her fairy godmother for advice. "Dear fairy godmother," she cried, "it didn't work. I got these amazing dresses, but I still have to marry him. What shall I do?" The fairy godmother scratched her purple hair and said, "This evil duke must have someone with magic helping him. No worry. There is one thing he cannot possibly get, one thing very precious to the king, his magic donkey. Your royal father will never agree to part with his precious donkey. Ask him tomorrow to get you a dress and cape made with the skin of the king's magic donkey. That will do the trick."
So she did.
Guess what? The Duke of Normandy didn't even bother asking the king about it. He just went and had his henchmen sneak into the stables at night and slit the donkey's throat. They had to spend a lot of time cleaning the skin and all that, but by 3 days' time, the dress and cape were ready. When Gomiki saw her dear friend the donkey reduced to a smelly dress and cape, she nearly broke down and cried. But the princess should never show weakness. So she straightened her back, and with a voice hard as steel, she told the gentleman to return to the Duke. "I will give him my answer tomorrow at noon." She ran out to her veranda and called for her fairy godmother. "Ah, well," sighed her fairy godmother, "there is no other recourse but to run away now. Take your dresses and your personal belongings with you. Dress up in the donkey skin and just run as far as you can."
But how could she take all the stuff with her and still manage to run?
Aha! That's where magic comes in useful. With a swish of her magic wand, the fairy godmother made a large wooden trunk appear. Gomiki packed as fast as she could. Then the fairy godmother showed her how to shrink it to the size of an apple by waving her hands and saying abracadabra 3 times. Gomiki hugged her, sobbing dearly, and then, with her tiny trunk in her pocket, she disappeared into the night, as fast as she could, with her clogs made of donkey hoofs. She ran for days and days through the forests and the mountains, eating wild berries that she found along the way. Finally, one day, after drinking from a little river, she collapsed from exhaustion. When she woke up, she saw her reflection in the water. She looked terrible. Okay, dear listeners, this was your book preview of The Wonderful Tale of Donkey Skin. If you wish to read the entire book and purchase it, this is how you can do that. If you want to get your very own copy of The Wonderful Tale of Donkey Skin, you can buy it from Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. All you have to do is type in the browser The Wonderful Tale of Donkey Skin and follow the links Thank you so much for supporting the Mayfairy, and we do hope you will enjoy this book.